Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news was confirmed quietly, without spectacle. Julio Rafael Pineda passed away on January 25, 2026, at the age of 88. In homes across New York and beyond, the reaction was the same. A pause. A deep breath. And the feeling that a familiar voice had gone silent. For more than 4 decades, Julio Rafael Pineda was not just a news anchor. He was a guide. A steady presence during uncertain times. Each evening, viewers tuned in not only for headlines, but for reassurance delivered with calm authority and dignity. Born on December 20, 1937, in Baracoa, Cuba, Pineda grew up far from the bright lights of American television. Like many immigrants of his generation, he carried with him both hope and loss. Before his 20th birthday, he left Cuba and began a new life in the United States, determined to build a future through honest work and service. In 1968, Pineda joined WXTV, the Univision affiliate in New York City. Spanish-language television was still finding its voice in America. Resources were limited. Recognition was rare. But Pineda believed the audience mattered. And that belief shaped everything he did. Night after night, he delivered the news with clarity and restraint. He spoke directly to immigrant families navigating a new country. He explained complex events in simple language. And he did so with respect, never talking down, never rushing through the truth. During moments of crisis, his tone remained steady. During moments of celebration, it was warm and proud. Over time, his voice became part of daily life. For many viewers, it was the sound of home. In 1983, Pineda reached a broader international audience when he co-hosted the OTI Festival alongside Ana Carlota. It was a moment that reflected his stature in Spanish-language media. He was trusted, admired, and deeply respected by peers across borders. By 1988, after years as WXTV's lead news anchor, Pineda took on a new role. He became the host of Punto y Apart, the first Spanish-language local interview program in the tri-state area. The show created space for conversation, debate, and community voices that were often overlooked. Although Punto y Apart ended in 1989, its impact remained. Pineda proved that Spanish-speaking audiences deserved serious journalism, thoughtful discussion, and representation rooted in dignity. Colleagues remember him as disciplined and prepared. Always early. Always respectful. One former producer shared, "Julio never raised his voice. He didn't need to. His calm carried authority." Viewers echoed that sentiment online after news of his passing. One longtime watcher wrote, "He explained America to us when we were still learning how to live here." Another said simply, "His voice made me feel safe." Pineda rarely sought the spotlight. He believed journalism was not about the anchor, but the audience. That humility earned him trust that lasted generations. In an era before social media and instant updates, Pineda represented patience. He waited for facts. He chose his words carefully. And he understood the weight they carried. As Spanish-language journalism evolved, his influence remained visible. Younger anchors studied his style. Clear. Calm. Human. He showed that credibility was built slowly, through consistency and care. Family members described him as gentle and deeply proud of his Cuban roots. He never forgot where he came from. And he never forgot who he was speaking to. Julio Rafael Pineda did more than deliver the news. He helped a community feel seen. He helped immigrants understand a changing world. And he did so with grace, every single night. Today, the studio lights are dimmer without him. But his legacy lives on in the voices he inspired and the trust he built. Julio Rafael Pineda will be remembered not for raising his voice, but for steadying others. And in the quiet space he leaves behind, his words still echo, clear, calm, and guiding. The news arrived softly, but it carried weight. Lowell "Sly" Dunbar passed away, and with it, the world of music felt a sudden stillness. In Jamaica, in studios across the globe, and in the hearts of listeners who grew up on reggae, there was a shared pause. A rhythm that once felt endless had come to rest. Sly Dunbar was not just a drummer. He was time itself, measured in beats. From the first strike of the snare to the deep echo of the bass drum, his sound shaped how reggae was felt, not just heard. For many, his rhythms were the pulse of a nation. Born in Kingston, Jamaica, Sly came of age in a city alive with sound. Music spilled into the streets. It came from churches, dance halls, and backyard rehearsals. As a young man, he listened closely. He learned how rhythm could speak when words were not enough. By the 1970s, Sly had found his place behind the drums. What set him apart was control. He did not rush the beat. He allowed space. That space became his signature. It gave reggae its deep, rolling feel, and it gave singers room to breathe and tell their stories. Everything changed when Sly partnered with bassist Robbie Shakespeare. Together, they became Sly and Robbie. One on drums, one on bass. Two musicians moving as one. Their partnership became one of the most influential rhythm sections in music history. They worked tirelessly. Studio sessions ran long into the night. Song after song took shape under their hands. From roots reggae to dancehall, from pop to hip-hop, their sound crossed borders without losing its soul. Artists trusted them. Legends leaned on them. Their credits stretched across decades and genres. Yet Sly remained grounded. He let the music speak for him. One fellow musician once said, "When Sly played, you didn't need instructions. The song already knew where to go." It was a quiet kind of mastery, earned through discipline and deep understanding. Beyond Jamaica, Sly's influence spread worldwide. His rhythms appeared in American pop, British rock, and global hip-hop. Producers studied his patterns. Drummers tried to copy his feel. Few succeeded. Despite his global reach, Sly never chased fame. He showed up. He played. He listened. In the studio, he was known for patience. If a take didn't feel right, he would stop and try again, never forcing the moment. Fans remembered him the same way. After news of his passing, one listener wrote, "Sly's drums were the soundtrack of my life. They carried joy and pain with the same strength." Another tribute read, "He didn't just play reggae. He protected it." As music changed, Sly adapted without losing himself. New styles came and went, but his sense of rhythm remained timeless. Younger artists saw him as a bridge between generations. He welcomed them, always open, always curious. In interviews, Sly spoke little about himself. He spoke about feel. About groove. About serving the song. "The drum is the heartbeat," he once said. "If the heartbeat is right, everything else survives." His passing marks the end of an era, but not the end of his presence. His recordings continue to move people. His influence lives in every beat that values space, balance, and truth. Sly Dunbar gave reggae its steady ground. He gave musicians a foundation to stand on. And he gave the world a rhythm that still moves through time. though the drum kit now sits silent, the rhythm carries on. In every echo of reggae played today, his spirit remains, strong, patient, and endlessly alive. The news was confirmed quietly, without fanfare. Yvonne Feddersen passed away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than applause ever could. There were no flashing lights. No red carpets. Just a pause, and the quiet realization that a life devoted to protecting children had come to its end. Yvonne Feddersen was once known for her presence in Hollywood. She appeared on television screens at a time when fame promised comfort and recognition. But for her, the spotlight was never the destination. It was only a beginning. As the years passed, she saw a world beyond cameras and scripts. A world where children suffered in silence. Stories of abuse and neglect reached her, and she could not turn away. What she saw changed the direction of her life forever. She chose to step back from acting and step forward into service. Alongside her husband, she co-founded Child Help, an organization built on a simple belief that no child should suffer without protection. At a time when child abuse was rarely spoken about, Yvonne chose to speak openly and act boldly. The work was difficult. The stories were painful. Many nights ended in tears. But she stayed. She listened. And she built systems to help children feel safe again. Child Help grew from a small effort into a global mission. It provided crisis hotlines, treatment centers, and education programs. Through it all, Yvonne remained focused on the children, not the recognition. A former Child Help colleague once said, Yvonne never asked how hard the work would be. She only asked who needed help. That quiet determination became the heart of the organization. Her commitment did not go unnoticed. Over the years, her humanitarian work earned 5 Nobel Peace Prize nominations. Yet she rarely spoke of them. When asked about honors, she would gently shift the conversation back to the mission. In one interview, she said, "If one child sleeps safely tonight, that is enough." It was not a slogan. It was the way she lived. Those who worked beside her remember her as calm but unshakable. She did not raise her voice. She did not seek praise. She showed up, again and again, for those who had no one else. After news of her passing, tributes appeared across social media. One supporter wrote, "Yvonne gave children a future when the world had taken it away." Another shared, "She taught us that courage can be quiet." Yvonne Feddersen understood that real change often happens far from cameras. She believed compassion was strongest when it was steady and consistent. And she proved that one person's resolve could protect millions. Her legacy lives on in every child helped through Child Help. In every family given hope. In every survivor who found the courage to speak. Today, her name may not appear in headlines filled with glamour. But it is written deeply into the lives she saved. Yvonne Feddersen will be remembered not as a star who walked away from fame, but as a guardian who stepped into darkness and brought light. And in the quiet work of protecting the voiceless, her spirit continues to live on. The confirmation came without noise or ceremony. William Herbert Foge passed away, and the world barely noticed in the moment. There were no crowds, no headlines filled with shock. Yet the loss was profound. A man whose work saved millions had quietly stepped out of history. William Foge was not a public figure in the usual sense. He did not seek attention. He believed the work mattered more than the worker. And for much of his life, he stayed behind the scenes, letting results speak for themselves. Born in 1936, Foge felt called to medicine early. He believed health was a shared responsibility, not a privilege. That belief shaped every decision that followed. As a young physician, he traveled to some of the world's poorest regions. There, he saw disease not as an idea, but as daily reality. Smallpox, once feared across continents, was still killing quietly and without mercy. At the time, the disease was considered nearly unstoppable. Vaccines existed, but reaching everyone seemed impossible. Foch thought differently. He believed in strategy over scale. Instead of vaccinating entire populations, he focused on stopping outbreaks at their source. This approach became known as surveillance and containment. When a case appeared, teams moved quickly. They isolated it. They vaccinated surrounding communities. The chain of infection was broken. The method worked. Working with the World Health Organization and global partners, Foch helped turn an impossible goal into a real plan. Case by case, village by village, the virus lost ground. The work was slow and exhausting. Travel was dangerous. Resources were limited. Still, he pressed on, guided by patience and trust in science. A colleague once said, "Bill never talked about saving the world. He talked about saving the next person." That quiet focus defined him. In 1980, smallpox was officially declared eradicated. It was the first human disease ever eliminated. Millions of lives were saved, not through force, but through careful planning and cooperation. Yet Foch never claimed credit. He spoke of teams, of shared effort, of listening to local communities. Public health works best when people are partners, not targets, he once said. Later in life, he continued to serve. He advised global health programs. He taught young doctors. He reminded leaders that prevention mattered more than reaction. After news of his passing, tributes came from health workers and scientists around the world. One wrote, "We live longer because of him, even if we never knew his name." Another shared, "His legacy is a world without smallpox scars." William Foch understood that the greatest victories leave no monuments. When suffering is prevented, there is nothing to see. Only lives lived fully, without fear. His impact is felt every day in what does not happen. In hospital beds left empty. In children who never knew the disease that once haunted humanity. William Herbert Foch will be remembered not for speeches or awards, but for absence. The absence of pain. The absence of fear. And in that quiet space, his legacy continues to protect the world.